It started like any other small-town wedding, simple, charming, and heartfelt. The church was modest, the flowers hand-picked, and the guests mostly neighbors and close friends. But when the bride stepped out of the car, heads didn't just turn, they tilted in confusion, and then came the snickers. Her entourage didn't look anything like a glam squad's people expected. There were no designer gowns, no flashy makeup artists, no high heels clicking against the pavement. Instead, her bridesmaids wore plain dresses, some even mismatched, and a few guests whispered behind polite smiles. "Is this really her big day?" someone muttered. "Who even shows up to a wedding looking like that?" What they didn't know was that every step, every outfit, every quiet smile that day had a purpose and a story. The young bride, Maya, seemed calm and unfazed, holding her head high as if she knew something no one else did. And she did, because the truth was, Maya wasn't just any bride. Her story stretched far beyond this sleepy town, and her wedding wasn't just about love, it was about legacy. People had judged her by what they saw, but they didn't know who she truly was. They didn't know about the centuries-old secret tied to her bloodline. They didn't know about the ancient oath passed down from generation to generation. And they certainly didn't expect that the quiet girl walking down the aisle was, in fact, the direct heir to a forgotten royal dynasty. As the ceremony began, the laughter faded. Eyes widened. A hush fell over the crowd when a convoy of black cars pulled up silently just outside the church. No sirens, no announcements, just a quiet, commanding presence. The door opened, and what stepped out changed everything. What the guests were about to witness would not only rewrite everything they thought they knew about Maya, it would challenge everything they thought they knew about royalty itself. And this was only the beginning. The door of the sleek black car opened slowly, and an older man stepped out, tall, dressed in a tailored suit that wasn't flashy but carried a quiet authority. His face was unfamiliar to most of the crowd, but there was something about his presence that made people straighten in their seats. Behind him followed two others, one woman and one man, both carrying what looked like velvet-covered boxes. They moved with precision, like they had rehearsed this moment 100 times. And then came the silence, the kind that makes your skin prickle, where even the birds seemed to pause. Maya didn't flinch. She stood still at the altar, eyes locked with the man's as he walked toward her. For a second, her calm expression softened, not with fear, but with recognition. It was clear they knew each other, deeply. Her groom looked from Maya to the mysterious man, clearly unsure what was happening, but not daring to interrupt. Whispers filled the church like rising wind. Who are they? Is this some kind of performance? Why do they look like they belong to some embassy? But this wasn't a performance. The people watching just didn't know that Maya's life had never been what it seemed. She had grown up in this town, sure, went to the same school, worked at the same corner cafe. But few people knew she spent summers overseas, disappearing for months at a time. Few asked why she spoke multiple languages, or why she always wore that delicate pendant around her neck, one she never took off, not even today. It was the only visible clue to her real identity. Her mother, gone too soon, had told her stories as a child, tales of castles, hidden heirlooms, and a powerful lineage forced into silence. Maya always thought they were bedtime fantasies, until the day she turned 18 and everything changed. Now, standing in her wedding dress, facing an entire room of people who thought they knew her, Maya was about to step into the very role she had spent her whole life preparing for. But she wasn't just carrying the weight of a new marriage, she was carrying the weight of an ancient secret. And the reveal hadn't even started yet. The man stopped just a few feet from Maya and gave a respectful nod. "Princess," he said, loud enough for those nearby to hear. The word hit the crowd like a thunderclap. A few guests gasped. Others looked around, unsure if they'd misheard. Maya didn't blink. She simply nodded in return, as if she'd been waiting her entire life to be addressed that way in public. Her groom reached for her hand, but she didn't take it. Not yet. The older man, who introduced himself only as Ambassador Ren, stepped aside and gestured to the woman behind him. She opened the velvet box in her hands. Inside was a small golden crest, polished, intricate, and unmistakably royal. Ren explained, in a calm but commanding voice, that Maya was the last living descendant of the House of Aurelia, an ancient European monarchy believed to have vanished during political unrest decades ago. The family had gone into hiding for safety, and their presence was erased from public record. Only a few trusted allies knew of their existence. Maya's mother had been the final link, until she died under mysterious circumstances Maya rarely talked about. Now that burden had shifted to her. The guests were stunned. People who had once mocked her bridesmaids' simple dresses now struggled to make eye contact. But the tension in the room wasn't just about surprise, it was fear. Because with Maya's identity revealed came risk. Her uncle, a former military leader turned war profiteer, had long tried to reclaim the throne for himself. He believed Maya had died with her mother. The moment he found out she was alive, and standing in front of cameras, no less, he'd come for her. And everyone in that room might be caught in the crossfire. In the back of the church, Maya's childhood friend Elena slipped out quietly, phone in hand. She knew something Maya had tried to keep buried. Meanwhile, the groom's face had gone pale. He looked at Maya like he didn't recognize her anymore. And maybe he didn't, because Maya wasn't just the girl he fell in love with. She was a symbol, a threat, a target. And someone was already watching from across the street. The air inside the church had shifted. What was once a joyful wedding now felt like a standoff. Maya stood between two worlds, her past and her legacy, while the whispers behind her grew louder. Some guests began to inch toward the exits, unsure if they were witnessing history or stepping into danger. Outside, the black cars remained parked, engines still running, their presence adding a quiet sense of urgency. Ambassador Ren leaned toward Maya, voice low but firm. "We don't have much time. Your uncle's people could already be on their way." Maya glanced at her groom, whose eyes were pleading, confused, and wounded all at once. He had no idea this part of her life existed. She had hidden it to protect him. But now the truth was out, and nothing could be undone. From a second-floor window across the street, a camera lens zoomed in. Someone had been tracking Maya long before today. A shadow moved behind the curtain. They weren't paparazzi. This was different, colder, calculated. The same emblem that rested in Ren's hands was tattooed discreetly on the watcher's wrist. A symbol of the rival faction her uncle controlled. The silent war over the Aurelian bloodline had never ended. It had only gone underground. Meanwhile, in the back hall of the church, Elena pressed a code into her phone. She had promised Maya long ago that if it ever came to this moment, if the crown came calling, she would activate the signal. It would alert the old guards, those who had sworn loyalty to Maya's mother in exile. But Elena hesitated, because sending that message meant a full return to the royal life. No turning back, no more hiding. The groom finally spoke, his voice cracking. "Maya, are you in danger?" She turned to him slowly, and for the first time that day, her eyes showed fear. Not for herself, but for him. Before she could answer, a loud crack echoed from outside. Not gunfire, but close. A tire bursting. A message. Ren stepped in front of Maya. "They're here," he whispered. And just like that, the wedding turned into a countdown. The sound of the tire bursting had barely faded when the church doors flew open. A sharp gust of wind swept through the aisle, sending flower petals scattering like warnings. Two men in dark suits entered, clearly not part of the wedding, and definitely not part of Ren's team. Their eyes scanned the room quickly, their earpieces buzzing with coded chatter. One of them nodded toward Maya without saying a word. No one needed to ask who they were. Her uncle had found her. Ren moved swiftly, motioning for Maya to step back, but she didn't. Her eyes were locked on the intruders, her jaw set. She had prepared for this her entire life. What she hadn't prepared for was what came next. From behind the organ, a figure stepped out slowly, Elena. Gasps filled the church again, but this time not from fear, confusion. She held up both hands, showing she meant no harm, but the look on her face said otherwise. "I didn't know they'd find her this fast," she said, almost to herself. Ren's face darkened. "You told them," he said. Elena nodded, guilt in her eyes. "I didn't mean to. They promised they wouldn't hurt her. They said they just wanted to talk. I didn't know they were going to move now." Maya's heart dropped. Her oldest friend, the one she trusted with the truth, had made a deal, not out of betrayal, but desperation. Elena's younger brother had disappeared months ago under suspicious circumstances, and now it made sense. Her uncle had used him as leverage. Maya wanted to scream, to run, to undo the moment she ever spoke of her past. But there was no time. Outside, another car had pulled up, this one familiar. A black SUV Maya hadn't seen in years. It was the same model her mother used before she disappeared. And when the door opened, the real shock hit. A woman stepped out, graceful, tall, and unmistakably regal. Her hair pinned in the same style Maya remembered from childhood photos. Ren froze. His voice dropped to a whisper. "It can't be." Maya stared through the stained glass. Her lips parted, breath caught. Because standing there, alive, was her mother. And the entire balance of power was about to shift. Maya couldn't move. Her eyes were locked on the woman outside the church, her mother, the queen who was believed to be dead for over a decade. The world around her blurred as everything she thought she understood came crashing down. Ren was already at the door, trying to confirm what none of them could believe. Elena stood frozen, guilt and disbelief tangled on her face. The two men her uncle had sent didn't react at first, unsure if this was part of the plan or something far more dangerous. Then the queen entered. The church fell into silence again, but this time it wasn't fear that held them, it was awe. She walked down the aisle with the same calm authority Maya had always carried, and now she knew where it came from. Her mother looked older, more tired, but her presence was still sharp and unmistakable. She didn't look at anyone except Maya. "I had to disappear," her mother said softly, her voice reaching everyone even without a mic. "I faked my death to protect you. Your uncle was hunting us, and I had no other choice. But now he's gone too far." Ren stepped forward. "He knows she's alive. His people are watching us right now." The queen gave a small nod. "Then we finished this today." Suddenly, a loud crack rang out, this time unmistakably a gunshot. One of the glass panes near the altar shattered, and everyone hit the ground. Ren pulled Maya behind the podium while the guards shielded the queen. The two men from her uncle's faction ran toward the exit, but not before one of them whispered into a mic clipped to his collar. The doors burst open once more, but this time it wasn't an enemy. It was a special security unit loyal to the crown, armed, ready, and led by someone Maya hadn't seen in years, her cousin Darius, the heir who was believed to be lost during the coup. Darius nodded at Maya. "It's time to take back our name." Within minutes, the threat was neutralized. Her uncle's men were taken into custody, and Maya's identity was no longer a secret, it was declared. She wasn't just the hidden princess, she was next in line. But as the dust settled and the guests began to rise, one final twist remained. In the back of the church, unnoticed until now, a small child stepped out from behind the curtain. A little boy, no more than 6. He walked straight toward the queen and called her grandmother. Maya turned sharply. Her mother's face went pale. Ren's mouth fell open. And Maya realized there was another hair. For a long moment, no one moved. The boy stood between the pews, looking curiously at the stunned crowd, completely unaware of the storm he had just walked into. The queen slowly knelt and opened her arms, and the child ran into them without hesitation. The silence returned, but this time it was filled with wonder, not fear. Maya stepped forward, heart pounding, eyes locked on her mother. "Who is he?" she asked, voice barely a whisper. The queen stood slowly, the boy resting against her shoulder. "His name is Elias," she said gently. "He's your half-brother." Gasps rippled through the church once again. The missing years, the secrecy, the queen's vanishing. It all made sense now. During her exile, she had given birth to a son in hiding, protecting him from the same threat that once chased Maya. And now, both royal heirs stood side by side, no longer shadows of forgotten dynasty, but the future of a kingdom reborn. Elena stepped forward quietly, eyes on Maya. "I'm sorry," she said. "I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted my brother back." Maya looked at her for a long second, then gave a small nod. "I know," she said, "but we can fix this. Together." The groom, still stunned but standing strong, took Maya's hand. "This isn't the wedding I expected," he said with a small smile, "but I'd marry you all over again, even with the royal twist." Laughter broke the tension at last, light and real. The guests, though shaken, began to smile again. The fear had passed, and in its place was something even stronger: hope. By sunset, the church had emptied. The guards remained on watch, but the danger had faded. Maya stood outside, wind tugging at her veil, as she looked out over the hills of her hometown. The world now knew who she was, not just a bride, not just a royal, but a woman who had stepped into her truth with grace and courage. And as the last car pulled away, she turned to her mother, her brother, and the life waiting ahead.